What's going on YouTube? Claic, Yuzolt back again with another Final Fantasy Brave Exvius video, and in today's video, we're talking about the ability awakenings for Raegan, Citra, Sieghard, Folka, Ignacio, and Cid. That's a lot to cover, but there's some good stuff in there and some units I know you guys are using, so let's get into it. Alright guys, so first up we're going to talk about Sieghard, one of the best, if not the best, physical cover single target provoke tanks out there with a little bit of an ability to cover up magic damage. We're going to go ahead and scroll to the bottom here and be talking about his ability awakening. So initial thoughts looking over all of them is that Sieghard, you really want to use his passives and level those up and skill them up and awaken them, but as far as his abilities there are only a few. So I'm Gorgeous is going to be his ability. He can cast single target provoke, then use it again and gives him an AoE cover. What's increased here is we do get 3 turns to his provoke instead of 2 turns, and then we also get 3 turns for his damage mitigation, along with defense and spirit going up, boosting himself up by 130%, and then also giving himself defense and spirit break resistances. Now, looking at these two here, you know, they're great, but you probably get that from an outside source. This you will not, so that's pretty good. More than likely you won't. And then also putting up his chance of being targeted for 3 turns to caster instead of 2 turns is great. So I do give this the check mark of approval, strictly because you're going to need to do that. Like, you're going to need to be, you know, single target provoking in most cases. If you're always going to be using the build where you're putting innate draw attacks on him 100%, then maybe you can skip this one. But if not, this is one you want to upgrade. Next up is Stylish Form, which is going to be his AoE cover. What gets increased here is we get defense up for 130% and then increased resist for defense break by 100% to caster. You're probably going to be casting this a lot, so I would say still give that the check mark. This is going to be one that you're going to be using when you do AoE cover, or you're going to be I'm Gorgeous, but more than likely you're going to have to cast Stylish Form because you can't wait a turn to enable I'm Gorgeous into Gorgeous Pose. So I would say go ahead and upgrade this one. Again, you're getting the 130 defense up, you're getting the defense break resist, and sometimes you can't exactly cast that all in one turn from your support team. So again, like I said, you're probably getting it from outside sources like up here, but sometimes you can't in one turn, so then you end up getting your defense broken or etc. So yeah, maybe I would say that's also a check mark. The only reason I'm kind of a little bit, you know, about it is because it's not really making the ability that much better. It's just giving you you know, a buff that maybe somebody else gives you. Does that make sense? But overall, that's pretty much a check mark. Yeah, upgrade that. Next up, we have Full Break Charm. Is going to get increases to his damage he can do, and it does scale off defense. It's going to put up the actual break AoE, sorry, excuse me, all stat break for a single target to 60%, and his charm infliction is going to go up to 20%. Now I'm going to go with a skip on this one, unless you're going to be using him as your main breaker. If you're not, then this is a skip right here. You can save some of them tech crest, but it's really up to you. If you end up getting into a fight where you need him to be your main breaker, you're going to have to come back and awaken this. So you get that. It's not the highest in the world anymore, but 60% still nothing to shrug at, and so then you can use him as your breaker if need be. Moving on down to Super Wink, this is going to be another ability he has. This is going to be his magic cover AoE. Essentially, this is going to give him the kind of the same thing we've been seeing going on with his abilities. We're going to get a spirit, you know, buff of the stat that he's going to be covering, and then also not being able to be broken by that stat there for 3 turns. I am saying super skip on Super Wink, strictly speaking, because he, you know, you're probably not using him as an AoE magic cover tank. I mean, this is going to be a situation where if you are going to use him as one of those, maybe you invest in this, but it's so little that you're going to be doing that, in my opinion, that these two right here are just going to be, and they're not even the best buffs in the world, in my opinion, so, or, you know, increases with the ability awakening, so I would go ahead and skip this for sure. Now we're moving on to one more we're going to probably say skip on, which is Earthbound. It's going to be one of his CD abilities. It is a damage dealing ability that also decreases Earth resist by 1 turn. All that happens is you get more damage, and it changes it to an actual usable meta chaining family, but essentially you're really not going to be using, like, you're not doing this ability for damage, in my opinion, and it's power Chris. You're probably going to be using those for someone else, so this is going to be a skip here. Now we can finally move on to stuff that actually is really good in Noble Stance. Noble Stance is a passive. We're seeing an increase here into we get some increases in defense, spirit, and HP. We do get some increases in the chance to protect one ally, 75%. Now I do know that some people don't like their unit jumping in front of other units and covering them, but the increase the defense, spirit, and HP by 10% is just worth it in my opinion to make your tank even tankier. So I'm going with a yes. The next one up here, we do see increases to let's see, which one are we on right here? Noblesse, Oblige. Let's see. We get 30%. We're going up to 40% for spirit, defense, and HP. That's right. Again, just more stat increases. So we're definitely going to go with this. Anytime you are using a unit and you can upgrade their passives in order to give them more stats, it's always good, right? It's like giving them free pots, giving them free doors in their awakenings. We're going to say yes to this ability. It's going to make him a little bit more tanky. Moving on down, we have the same kind of going on here, but we're adding spirit. So we're getting the spirit defense going up. Earth resist stays the same. So this is essentially giving him a little bit more spirit. It's not exactly for making him an AoE cover tank, right? Which is why I'm going to give this a check mark and say go ahead and upgrade it. It's more so over giving you guys the ability to make sure he survives any kind of AoE spirit hit that or even single target, because he could be your single target provoke tank. Maybe he gets hit by a couple single target magic before your AoE magic cover tank takes over. It's always good to make your tank more tanky, and this is one of those options here. I would give it the check mark. Man of many rivals here going up, and this one right here is actually changing to giving you guys from, I think it was 50% to 75% to 100% guts. So it's a chance to ignore fatal damage 100% when HP is above 5%, meaning that he will not die at least one time in his life cycle. If he would die, get re-raised, it would reset. This is phenomenal for a tank. Lets them withstand a big hit, and then keep going. Hopefully, helping you guys with a little bit of kind of like a pseudo re-raise in a way. So definitely want to upgrade this. Worth it for sure. Brilliant Rose, we're coming down. It's adding spirit to these two passives here. We had HP and defense. Now we're adding spirit to this. Again, a little bit more tanky. Nothing really to the LB gauge roll, but allowing Sieghard to, withstand a little bit more if he would get hit with a magic attack. And then finally, we have Dangerous Rose here. It's something I would skip for sure. It just increases his damage and just hits everybody. I just don't really see a point in putting up Dangerous Rose. It also changes to A-Ray instead of Stardust Ray because that's the way Global's going. So overall, Sieghard's ability awakenings for me are pretty disappointing. I thought that he was going to become like this awesome Omega tank because he already was, and he still is, don't get me wrong. But overall, like, a lot of this stuff is giving him spirit up, a little bit of HP and defense, giving him the ability to buff himself by 130% defense, giving him the ability to, resist breaks, which is good. But at the same time, we have support units out there on your team more than likely to be able to take care of that. There was no huge changes here. There's a lot of like the ability to let him do some damage. I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, now he can do damage. He can help my team out. Well, that's true. But are you really wanting to spend your power, Chris, on getting a 2x upgrade on a tank unit to his multipliers? I really just don't think so. So overall, I'm going to say I'm a little bit disappointed with Sieghard, but he still is one of the best tanks physical damage-wise in the game. So, if you're going to be using him, the ones I talked about are good choices to make him even more powerful. Next up, we have Raegan, which has been getting buffed, been getting side story buffs, been getting all kinds of good stuff. Now with these enhancements and these ability awakenings, he is becoming a beast. I think he's going to be pretty good for you guys out there. So let's go over them. We have Blades of Azure Crimson, if I can say that right. This ability here is going to get an increase in the physical damage modifier, along with getting an increase in the fire and ice resistances that you get to put down and the turn value that it does it. So it goes up to 100%. It's DR chaining, which kind of sucks, kind of outdated, but hey, you got to do with what you want. I think this one's going to be a skip strictly because of his other upgrades he gets on other abilities down the road here in a minute. So we're going to say skip on this one, even though normally you'd be like, holy shit, like that's awesome. It's going to get even better here in a minute. Next up, Octo Strike Blade, which is going to be his main ability. You guys are going to be using the chain with him. That is going to be getting increases to its damage. So it's going all the way up to a 6x multiplier there. And you want to increase that because down the road here in a minute, when we look at some of his, I keep saying down the road here in a minute, when we look at some of his other upgrades, Octo Strike Blade is going to be the key ability you guys are going to be using the chain with him, and it's absolute mirror of equity chaining, making it easy to chain with a lot of the top tier damage dealers, and Raegan's going to become one of them. And here's what I'm talking about in Azure Flame Edge and Crimson Frost Edge. So these are going to be, with the Blades of Azure Crimson, that is both fire and ice together. Well, here with these Azure Flame Edge and the Crimson Flame Edge, you guys are going to have the ability to, it's a CD ability, so it does fire physical damage or it does ice physical damage, you know, each one. And once you get it fully upgraded, it will decrease ice or fire resist, you know, depending on each one. I want to make sure you guys understand that there are two different ones. And then by 110% instead of whatever it was before, which was like maybe I think it was 100%. And then also adds that element to yourself for 4 turns. That is increased from 2 turns Imperil and Imbue to 4 turn Imperil and Imbue. And let's not forget that this ability used to only be available on turn 4, and now it is going to be available on turn 1. So that allows you guys to get in there and do the damage you guys want to do. Essentially, you don't want to upgrade both of them, I don't think. I think you want to pick either you want to be messing around with ice damage or fire damage. And, you know, if you need to use one or the other, you go back in and upgrade. One of the bigger differences here is in Divine Runation Chaining family with Azure Flame Edge, and then Absolute Mirror of Equity Chaining family down here. Although, when you use this ability, you probably are using it, you know, with another Raegan, but if not, you know what I mean, you could still slide this into the beginning rotation with somebody else that has Absolute Mirror of Equity. Divine Runation's a little bit old. I wish I would have updated that. But those are huge increases, right? Going all the way up to 110% either ice or fire down, with Imbue going up to 4 turns. Now, I know he's going to be a true dual-wield unit, but this gives you the option of always applying and imperiling at the same time, so you don't have to worry about putting the element on him if you don't want to. Fantastic upgrades here, making it available in turn 1. Next up is Kingdom's Hero, which got a huge upgrade as well. Moving on down, it normally just gave you some stat upgrades to the, you know, survivability stats. Increases your LB gauge by 2 every turn, LB fill rate up, but now it's giving you 60% true dual wield, which you guys really want to get, right? Because that's what he wants. 60% there, and upgrades his LB. Moving on down to his upgraded LB, giving Octo Strike Blade, which we talked about at first, that's going to be his main damage dealing ability that we could get up to a 6 times multiplier before, a 14 times modifier increase for 2 turns. So essentially, this is great. This is what you guys want to be doing. He's going to be doing massive damage. You want to cast his LB, then go back and do Octo Strike Blade, which is going to be good for you. So Kingdom's Hero, yes, upgrade it. Next, Forsaken Armor is getting, normally just gave you guys fire, ice, and dark resist. Well, now if you upgrade it fully, it'll give you another attack by 50% upgrade, increase passively. So you guys, okay, he gets really powerful, Raegan does. And don't forget to do the side story, but overall, I think Raegan's going to be pretty good now, especially for, you know, for the people that need to be doing fire or ice damage. He's going to be a key point in that. For the abilities, I know I talked over him, but I want to say which ones I think you should upgrade. I think you skip Blaze of Azure Crimson. Octostrike Blade does get increased. You pick one of these two, whichever one you're going to work with, and if you need to work with the other one, you increase, but one of these two definitely need upgraded, and you upgrade both of these down below. He actually almost got a check mark on all of them, and really does if you end up needing to use Ice and Fire with him down the road. Raegan just got huge upgrades. I'm very pleased with what he got, and you guys will be too if you're Raegan fans. Next up, we're going to be talking about Citra, and Citra has always been looked at as like the bad summoner, you know what I mean? She has the old summoning ways, and we're hoping her enhancements fix that, but they don't, sadly. Her enhancements were not, and Global didn't change really anything to make her too crazy. She does get triple cast down here in her triple, you know, in one of her double evocation to triple evocation ability awakenings. She does get some more evoke damage. She gets some different ways to put up the evocation gauge a little bit more, but the problem is she's still going with the old evocation damage, and she just doesn't hold a candlestick to the other summoners we have in the game, or evoke damage dealing people like Silka, for example. She's not going to be able to do as much damage as them. So overall, I'm not even going to go too much into her ability awakenings because I don't think anybody should be using them. I think they're just too bad. If you love Citra, I'm sorry that I'm not going into full detail on these, but I feel like I'd be wasting your time and anybody else's time to really go in detail on them because they're really just not that great. Hopefully with latent ability upgrades, Citra can become better, but if not, Citra is just going to have to sit on the bench and look pretty. Folka has been a mainstay in a lot of people's parties as she is one of the better white mages out there, you know, healers, support type units, and she will stay that way thanks to some of her enhancements here that give her a little bit of oomph and let her stay up there. Now, I know there are a lot of great choices out there in Myra and soon to be Warrior of Light Lena, but Folka can still withstand the test of time and get you guys through some of these trials, so do not overlook her in the future. If you really only have her, Myra and, again, Warrior of Light Lena are great choices, better in my opinion. But if you don't have them, don't worry. We have some Folka enhancements here to help you out. So Blue Mirage is going to be giving you guys increased modifiers on some of her damage dealing abilities. I don't think you're really using her for that, so we're going to skip that. That is going to be a do not upgrade for me. Next up, we have Flowing Waters, which is going to get an MP reduction here and also grant an HP barrier, 2,000 HP barrier for 5 turns to all allies. And this ability is great, one a lot of people that use Folka use, so we are going to give that the check mark of approval, and you are going to want to upgrade that. Giving everybody defense and spirit break and stop resist, along with all those other resistances and an HP barrier, is fantastic. Next up, we have the alternative of that, Sobering Water, which is covering the other status elements that you maybe didn't cover beforehand. Going to get an MP reduction along with, again, a special little thing here, heal and MP refresh over time. So we get a regen for 5 turns and an MP refresh for 5 turns. That is also getting the check mark. Please upgrade this ability. It's really good. Her next ability she gets are the 3 abilities she has that gives you physical mitigation, magic mitigation, and then just general mitigation overall. And each of those are getting an increase into how much they actually mitigate. So we're looking into this here, Serpent Guard, Cerulean Shell, and Ancient Aquarium. Again, we have physical, magic, and just general mitigation, which is great. Remember, they all do stack on top of each other. You're upgrading all 3 of those. The less damage you can take and the more support, the more your support can help you do that, the better. Upgrade all 3 of those. Fantastic. Making Folka even better at doing your job. Great stuff there. Original Priestess of the Water is going to give you guys some spirit when equipped with the staff. That's going to be increased, and that's what you guys want, right? More takiness to make your Folka withstand some damage, maybe heal a little bit more. That's great to increase. And then we have Anti-Disease here, which is a counter she would do against physical or magic attacks, which would cure all status elements off of your allies, and it just increases that chance up to 40%. I'm going to leave that up to you guys. I would skip it. It's not something I'd be looking forward to use too much. You know, she's probably not getting smacked too much, and then also, you probably don't really have status elements on to begin with because of how good she is at making you resistance to them. So, you know, I'd be skipping that just to save you guys a little bit on the money, the Gil, and the Chris. So overall, Folka, again, great changes. You know, getting a barrier in her rotation, getting an HP and MP refresh and regen in her rotation, and allowing her to have your team take less damage is fantastic. Folka's one of the better ones to get enhanced in this batch, in my opinion, because of those reasons. So if you're a Folka fan, this is awesome. Next up, we're going to be talking about Ignacio, which is a support, you know, damage dealing unit that did get overlooked quite a bit by a lot of people, including myself. Just wasn't really into him, but some people are. And he does get some upgrades here to help him keep doing his job he was doing before, just a little bit better. I don't think it's anything that flashes him into the, you know, into the meta really quick and makes everybody want to use him, but he's pretty good at what he does. And again, this just makes him get back up there on his feet. We have Axe Mastery getting increased, giving him a higher increased attack percent when equipped with an axe, then also giving him a higher true double hand attack increase with single wielding any weapon. So if you are going to be using him for damage and not just his support side, this is an ability to awaken. But if you are not to enhance, if you are not using him for damage, you can skip this one. That's, you know, you can read it. It's essentially there to do more damage. Crush Stamp is getting an increase to fire, it's getting an increase to damage, and it's also getting an increase to how much it actually puts down the enemy fire resist wise, all the way up to 110 in peril. So again, if you're using him, this is definitely a check mark. This is, you upgrade this. If you plan to use Ignacio for a long time to come and you want to be dealing fire damage, this is a 110% in peril. It's going to be fantastic. Definitely upgrade Crush Stamp. Critical Stamp will be getting an increase in damage along with enabling his triple cast. That's what Strike While the Iron's Hot. Enabling that every time you use Critical Stamp, which is going to be great there. Again, you know, damage increase is always good. Again, it seems like I was saying with the Axe Mastery, if you are going to use him for damage, with all these increases in damage, you probably want to upgrade that just to give him a little bit more oomph, a little bit more damage while you're fighting your enemy. And this enables triple cast, giving him a lot more options the next turn. So, you want to upgrade this if you are going to be using it. I mean, it's just too good to have an ability that's unlocking your triple cast. Next up, Full Burst Stamp. This one, you know, I have it kind of up in the air. This one is getting an increased modifier to damage. He's getting a little bit more LB gained every turn. He is adding fire element to physical attacks for 2 turns to caster, but that was already a thing. And then he also gets increased LB. So if you look at his LB again, just to remind you guys, it is just a heavy hitting, big D damage ability. So again, it seems like while he was supporting before, this adds a ton of extra damage to him. Increase this ability if you want to make sure that he's doing as much damage as possible, but if he's really just on your team, again, to do his supporty rolls and kind of sit on the side, you don't need to worry about using Full Burst Stamp here and enhancing it. Next up, we have Forge Weapon Flame Blast, which is going to give him a little bit more attack and magic, or give everybody, excuse me, the buff a little bit more attack and magic, so 5 turns of all allies, and before he only had a chance chance to add fire element to physical attacks for 5 turns of all allies. Now it happens for sure. This is a definite upgrade. Again, if you're using Ignacio, you're using him to give everybody a fire element, imbue everybody in peril, and a little bit of support on the side there with that. So that's pretty much his main use, in my opinion. Moving on down, he does have Forge Armor Blast, which is going to get an increase from 150% for all allies to 180%, so he can be your buffer, as you can see. And, it doesn't put up the fire resist anymore, but 100% is freaking good by my terms for 5 turns. And then giving your defense spirit 180, that is definitely an upgrade. So I don't see Ignacio as a bad option at all when it comes to, being your fire imbuer, your fire imperiler, doing a little bit more damage, and all the other support things he does. I think people just overlooked him there for a little bit. His enhancements aren't anything to make him like, oh my god, I gotta drop my Sylvie and my Myra, Ignacio's the answer. But if you need somebody to fire in peril, you want somebody to imbue your team, don't overlook Ignacio, because he definitely is an option. Alrighty, and last but not least, we have our Dragoon Cid, and he was so fun to mess around with there for a while, taking him in on Gilgamesh, one-shotting him, and he's going to get a lot of increases to those abilities to allow him to come back into the meta and start trying to do a little bit of one-shot, two-shot, 3-turn KO strategies out there, which is really fun, and it's a lot of fun with using Cid. If you guys remember how to use Cid, it was pretty much use a cooldown ability, jump in the air with Spine Shatter, chain it up, Spine Shatter comes down, blow somebody up, and that was before it got this massive upgrade here. All right, guys, so it went from before it was an 18 times multiplier with all of his jump damage, it ended up being massively effective. Now that bad boy gets increased to a 40 times multiplier with all that jump damage added on top of it. It is going to melt things. You guys are gonna have a lot of fun out there using Cid if you love that kind of thing where you get the unit ready, you jump up in the air, and then you come down and just rain hell from the fucking heavens, dude. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, that's a huge increase to his damage. And if we keep moving on down, we do have Sky Dragon Squall, which is if used after, with the Spine Shatters, you are going to be using this ability quite often. He gets turned down to a 3-turn cooldown, allowing him to keep his uptime with his Spine Shatter dive a little bit quicker, which is great. Fantastic. Definitely upgrade this. And that's before we even start reading what else it does. Because remember, Sky Dragon Squall puts an evade 2 physical attacks on all your allies for 3 turns now with this upgraded version. So you're definitely going to upgrade this because it goes Sky Dragon Squall, Spine Shatter dive. That's kind of what you're working with when you work with Cid, which is really fun. Looking at his jump mastery, we do get increased jump from 100, goes up to 175, then up to 200%. And of course, right? Because what are we using? We're using a jump move. Of course, we want more jump damage. So definitely a check mark there. Upgrade that. Expert Lancer, we're going to upgrade as well, giving him 100% true double hand to his kit, making him easier to build. Maybe be able to put a little bit more jump damage on him. Great stuff there. His next ability, so definitely upgrade that. Love for his daughters is going to give him a little bit more Beast Killer right here. So it goes up with his Beast Killer, also giving him a little bit of increased MP so he can keep doing those abilities you like him to do. So you're going to increase this because, if you're fighting a beast, that extra Beast Killer is going to be fantastic. And then as we go down here, we do have some LB damage up. We have LB fill rate up. We don't have any increase in attack. And honestly, you will be using his LB sometimes. I wouldn't say all the time, but sometimes. So if you find yourself maybe wanting to use his LB, here's an option for you, but it's probably a skip because it's all about the Sky Dragon Squall Spine Shatter dive. And I'm not kidding, guys. Cid is going to do a shit ton of damage. He's going to be a lot of fun. I would say even more so than Raegan. How I was saying Raegan earlier in the review, I think he's going to be up there. I don't think that Raegan's going to be, the next meta. He's not up there, Xeno, CG Barts and all that stuff. But, with Raegan's enhancements, he becomes at least viable for you guys to be able to use. I think Cid's gonna start crushing shit, man. Those upgrades are fantastic. It's awesome. With the way we can enable units nowadays, he's just gonna be a ton of fun. So if you want to use Cid, you want to go in there and just start throwing down with a Dragoon, he's gonna be a great option for you. All right, guys. So overall, what do I think about these enhancements? Again, Raegan is an option for people out there who have been struggling and not getting a physical damage dealing unit chainer. I think he's pretty good. Citra, on the other hand, not worth the time at all. Sieghard, if you've been using Sieghard and he is your tank, I like Bosch a little bit more, and I'm just using who I want. I've always used Wilhelm and Ulbrich, and now I'm moving to Ulbrich, excuse me. And also, again, maybe save your Christ. If you are going for Goluf, who should be soon, the new Goluf coming out, you may not want to use your Christ on Sieghard because you will be getting that new and super improved tank in Goluf. Folka, amazing, by the way. If you don't have Myra, you're not going for Warrior of Light Lena, and enhance your Folka. Great changes there. Ignacio, kind of on the side there. I'd say you know, I'd say go Citra, Ignacio for uses. I mean, there are people out there who are going to use Ignacio, but not the most. And Sid's awesome. So if I had to rank all these, we'd go from bottom to top. So Citra, Ignacio, Raegan, Sieghard, Cid, dude. Folka at the top. That's how I'm doing it, man. Sieghard, again, gets some tanky stats, but his enhancements were a little bit underwhelming. Before you guys start Awakening, and you might have already done it for today, tomorrow we are getting those 40 million download quests, and one of them is to ability Awakening some units. So you may want to wait until tomorrow so you can get that knocked out and get those cool prizes from that. I just wanted to put that PSA out there. So if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment down below who you like out of these enhancements, who you're going to be enhancing. Be sure to subscribe for future content. Catch me on Twitter. Ask me questions. You can always hit me up on Twitter. I try to answer everyone. I miss some, and I'm so sorry. And then come to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Claic Yuzolt. We're playing FFBE on there. We stream on Fridays nights. Every night we do summon things. You can always add me in the chat, talk with me, ask me your questions. Always like interacting with you, and Twitch makes that so easy. So, I hope you guys have a great weekend. So we'll catch you guys in the next video.